Okay, let's dive right into our developer sketchpad for this explainer and explore FastAPI. When you're working with Python, the possibilities are literally endless. You can build console apps, craft UIs, go deep into AI, or, and this is what we're focusing on today, build robust web frameworks. We're zooming in specifically on FastAPI, which has absolutely skyrocketed to become the premier modern web framework for Python. So if you've ever wanted to build incredibly fast back-end web applications, but kind of felt completely overwhelmed by all the setup and heavy lifting, well, you are in exactly the right place. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. We'll meet FastAPI. 2. We'll ask, why choose FastAPI? 3. We're going to look at an inventory app project. And 4. We'll cover the tools and prerequisites. All right, Section 1, Meet FastAPI. To really appreciate what we have today, we've got to take a quick look back at the history of Python web frameworks. Think back just 5 or 6 years ago. The default choice for almost everything was Django. And hey, it's a fantastic framework, but it's notoriously bulky. It's this massive all-in-one solution that brings a whole lot of heavy baggage you might not actually need for a simple backend. Then, moving into the recent past, developers started shifting towards Flask, giving us a much more lightweight alternative. But looking at where we are right now, we've landed squarely on FastAPI. And it's wild because a lot of developers who initially set out to explore Flask have actually pivoted straight to FastAPI simply because of how modern and streamlined it is. At its core, FastAPI is a modern framework that's usually chosen for one very simple reason. It is incredibly easy to get going with, and it just works. Seriously, when you're trying to get a project off the ground, the absolute last thing you want to do is wrestle with your framework's configuration, right? FastAPI gets entirely out of your way so you can just write your Python code. It offers these amazing built-in features that seamlessly handle all the heavy lifting of API routing and data validation for you. Moving right along to Section 2, why choose FastAPI? This quote right here brilliantly illustrates the core claims straight from the official FastAPI homepage. They explicitly state that the framework is high performance, easy to learn, fast to code, and completely ready for production. And honestly, developers using it consistently back this up. They report that the learning curve is exceptionally gentle, and the speed at which you can actually write and deploy functional code is just staggering. It slices through boilerplate like a hot knife through butter, meaning you can take an idea from your head to a production-ready API in record time. Now, what's really wild here is the sheer scale of their performance claims. Historically, Python hasn't exactly been known as the absolute fastest language on the block for web execution speeds, but FastAPI promises that its performance is actually right on par with industry speed giants like Node.js and Go. That is a massive statement. It basically means you get to keep all that beautiful, readable, intuitive syntax of Python while still achieving the kind of high-octane performance that massive, enterprise-level applications demand. Okay, Section 3. The inventory app project. So the crucial point here is isolating exactly what we're building and where our focus is actually going to be. In our sample tech stack, we've got 3 main layers. For the database, we're using Postgres to store our data. For the backend, the actual core of our logic, we're using Python paired with FastAPI. And for the front-end user interface, we're using React. But here is the catch. We're completely skipping the React learning curve for this explainer. The front end is just a pre-built package. And, fun fact from our source material, the UI was actually generated entirely by AI. So if you spot any weird visual glitches, go ahead and blame the AI. But if you love the design, well, credit goes to the brilliant human prompts that generated it. Our sole focus today is just taking that given front end and wiring it up to a super fast API backend. Looking at the endpoints we need to build, we can actually track this really cool mini narrative of how data moves through our app using standard CRUD operations. Create, read, update, and delete. First up, we create. Imagine typing into our React frontend to add a brand new product. An Asus laptop will assign it ID number 5, price it at $999 with a quantity of 12. That data shoots over to our FastAPI backend, which safely stores it in Postgres. Next, we read. We can build an endpoint that lets a user search specifically by ID to pull up that exact laptop. Then we update, so if the price drops, our backend handles that edit seamlessly. And finally, we delete. Let's say we decide we no longer want cheap products in our premium inventory. We just trigger a delete request to clear out the pens. Actually, the creator of our source material joked that pens are incredibly important, but hey, for the sake of learning our delete endpoint, they are officially out of the inventory. Which brings us to Section 4, Tools and Prerequisites. The absolute beauty of FastAPI is that the barrier to entry is delightfully low. You really don't need much to get started. First, you just need some basic Python programming knowledge. We definitely won't be covering the absolute bare bones Python syntax here. Second, a foundational understanding of what a web framework actually does is going to be incredibly helpful. And third, you just need a basic grasp of how client-side communication works. Basically, if you can conceptualize what happens when a web browser, the client, sends a request to a server and how that server replies, you are golden. If you have those three concepts down, you are entirely ready for this. When it comes to picking your editor, or IDE, there are pretty much two main camps in the Python world. You have options like PyCharm, which is an incredibly powerful tool, but it can be quite bulky and resource-intensive. Honestly, it's potentially overkill if you're just starting out with this. On the flip side, there's VS Code. We strongly recommend VS Code for this learning curve because it's incredibly lightweight, super popular, and has fantastic extension support for Python and FastAPI. It keeps things fast and simple, which perfectly mirrors the whole philosophy of the framework itself. All right, we are at the final steps before you begin coding. To really grasp this material, you have got to shift from being a passive viewer to an active developer. Step 1, double-check that Python and VS Code are actually installed on your machine. Step 2, and I cannot stress this enough, this is the most critical part, practice the code. Do not just sit back and passively watch tutorials. You literally have to get your hands dirty, write the endpoints yourself, and inevitably encounter those bugs. That's how you learn. And step 3, read the official documentation. The FastAPI docs are famously well written. If you get stuck, or if you want to explore a cool feature deeper than we've covered, those docs are absolutely your best friend. So, we've sketched out everything on our Scratchpad today. You now understand the history, the absolutely incredible performance promises, the exact tech stack required, and the tools you need to install right now. The barrier between you and a high-performance Python backend has literally never been lower. So, I'm going to leave you with one final thought as you fire up VS Code today. You have the tools, you have the stack, and you have the framework. What will you build first?